But apparently, based on his Kickstarters, each book he is getting it up to over $100,000 for each book. So he's not hurting.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
He is not hurting. He is still doing just fine in his particular genre.
Holy crap.
Let's
I wonder
see.
if he's running his own Kickstarter, or if he's having other folks do it.
He's running his own.
Well, I mean, you can always hire somebody to administer them at that point.
I think he's doing his own. There it is. Let me see. Book 9. What did it do? Where did it go? Raised $132,000. I'll throw the link to the Kickstarter in the live as well, just so you can see it. But I went there to look for something, but I can't remember. Oh, I was looking for the author's name. That's what it was. Who is this? Michael Scott Earl.
Okay.
But that's the only reason I went there, is to look up his name, because I'd forgotten who the hell he was.
Does that happen often?
It happens to me more often than I would like. But yeah, he has things. He has things like, in his Kickstarters, he'll have explicit artwork for the characters as part of the Kickstarter rewards. Things like that.
Yeah, I know one of the romance authors that I do work for. That's part of her Patreon. She'll have, because she'll commission the art while she's working on the second draft of the book, right, and then give little teasers for the art and all that. And she'd also she also would do stickers out of them, not the explicit ones, just like the other art ones. Because I'm not sure if I can get away with having explicit art stickers on my water bottle.
Probably not. It seems like when I remember the art came out, it was a mixture of both clothed, unclothed, and some explicit content. So now I'm going to have to look and see. I'll see if I can find some.
Tim says Earl was that guy who got banned from Amazon. Yes.
That is indeed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Men's fantasy.
Men's fantasy.
Yep.
I'm going to have to check into this genre now to get an idea of what the hell's going on.
Aaron Crash.
I beg your pardon?
So Aaron Crash is an author. He writes for... I narrated one book in his series, the American Dragons series. But he writes it really well. And I cannot remember the name of the publisher.
Aaron Crash.
Yes.
Okay.
But fun stuff, good stuff.
Birds and bees going on in those books. Yeah, if you look at what's in live. Yeah, look at what's in live.
But there's definitely a lot of pollinating going on. Whether anything happens because of it, although I think that does happen in one of the series I've narrated. Oh well.
On that note, howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of the Dead Robot Society. I am Paul E. Cooley. Join me as always, Veronica Jaguar and Terry Mixon, who sometimes joins us and other times blows us off.
Get
off my lawn.
Well, don't keep us in suspense, V. What the hell have you been up to?
I'm behind in my recording schedule. So I've been trying to catch up on things. When authors are lax in getting you stuff that you need to narrate, you wait. So I've got to catch up before the next book I have to start next week. So that'll be fun. Been working on the book blanket. So yeah, it's a nice way to track things. And I had to come up with another color for like Golden Age
Golden Age
sci-fi
sci-fi.
erotica. Yeah, sci-fi erotica. So,
Golden
Half
Age
the
sci-fi
specify-
erotica. That's what she said
Yeah.
last week.
yep. So that's
Is that Buck Rogers and Wilma getting it on? Is that what we're talking about?
That's what you asked last week.
All right, I'm going to
You are
ask it
literally
again.
don't remember anything, do
yes.
you?
It's. I mean, granted, it's sapphic golden age sci-fi erotica,
Okay.
but yes,
So Buck is Beatrice.
Wait a second.
more or less.
You could have Buck Rogers harem fantasy stuff going on.
Why wouldn't you?
Could.
Buck Rogers and all of his female co-pilots.
Princess Abdallah and Colonel Deering and,
Oh my
and
gosh.
pick another
You know,
one.
I don't even have to guess. That is already all over the internet. I am sure that it is.
It probably is, but the
But
question
you
is,
haven't done it.
can you do it better?
I don't have to do it better. I just have to do it good enough for me.
Fair enough.
See, now
Fair.
that's an interesting question you should always ask every person that's written erotica. Have you ever written anything solely for your own enjoyment? And you can use enjoyment in whatever phrase you like for that particular one.
True. True.
I was going to say phrasing, but never mind. You covered it.
Phrasing, this is particularly true. And I will be clear, as an author of erotica, I have.
This is DRS. We have gone far beyond phrasing.
Wizard of Oz, Dorothy puts Tin Man Lion and Scarecrow in
Ho,
closure.
ho, ho, reverse
I bet it
harem
exists.
going on,
I
baby.
bet it exists.
If I only had a penis.
Oh, well, they always have oil for lube. Anyway,
I just need a little more courage.
I'm a lion. They made me to eat meat.
Terry, how are you doing?
Haven't you read his little banner? He's unrepentantly smexy.
Smexy. Return of Oz with a Vengeance is the series. Oh my God. I guess I shouldn't be shocked.
So, what am I up to?
Yeah, what are you two, man?
I got the book turned in, and I'll have the editorial stuff back from the book and finished probably tomorrow. I've already gotten the first half of the most recent book, done the editorial comments and fixed that and sent it back to them. And they decided to go ahead and, for editorial reasons, have yanked my Smexy storyline out of the novel. So I am disappointed.
Darn it.
Which is
So-
what sparked all of this for everybody that may have seen stuff in live. That's what sparked this conversation. But
Terry is HGTV House Reno mode.
it's true, and I'll get to that part in a minute. But oh my gosh, I'll be glad to get this book done and move on to the next one. But I'm going to be somewhat less than cooperative because they're saying, "Oh, we need to take this out." I was like, "Okay, go ahead, take it out."
Because I'm not.
Because I'm not.
No love for love in sci-fi.
Apparently not. They think that their audience would be offended by having, a little bit too much sexiness going on.
This was just insinuated, man. It was subtle. It didn't have... You weren't showing anything.
It's not like
You
were
weren't even
having,
showing ankles.
It's not like you were having, James T. Kirk go seduce somebody and wind up trying
Spock. Come here, Spock.
I want your Vulcan death grip.
to... Captain, this is not logical. But Spock, love is never logical.
Oh, God, that's bad.
Oh, Scotty, beat me up. Oh my gosh.
Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a massage therapist.
I'm trying to short circuit this, and I'm not doing a very good job of it.
In any case, I wasn't as hardcore as that, but the editor offered to go ahead and remove the portions from book one that were offending to show how easy it would be. And I said, that's great. You go ahead and do that. And do it for the second part too. And then we'll just accept it because my brain hurts even trying to figure out how I'm going to read through this and figure out what should be there after you yanked everything out. So you yank whatever you want to out, and then the beta readers can tell us if something doesn't make sense. But I am only going to cooperate to so far of a point in having my storyline changed. I didn't say that part out loud, but that's how I feel. No, I meant to them. I didn't tell them that part.
Yeah, well. Anyway, is that all you got?
For the book part stuff, yeah, sure. For home, they're done downstairs except for the lighting, getting the glass enclosure for the shower, and putting up things like the shower curtains, not shower curtains, the towel racks and stuff like that, and the mirror. So they're almost done downstairs. As soon as they get the lighting in, they'll start tearing down the upstairs.
Gotcha. Then life gets real fun.
Hey, at least they don't have to do concrete upstairs. Maybe it'll be a week faster.
No, that's true. I hadn't considered that. Well, I don't have an agreement that the book is going to be written, but I'm already 13,000 words into it, so...
Yes, but is it smexy?
It has no smexiness. No smexiness in this book.
No tentacles? None. Nothing?
No, this is...
After we give him this whole brand new cover idea, he just ignores the whole thing and runs off and does something else.
You're telling me you're going to set this in Antarctica when it's cold and we're not going to have any
stiff
excitable
nipples?
T-shirt moments? I mean, jeez.
No, and although that would be kind of funny to put that up against the body horror stuff that's going to start happening in the book, that would be hilarious. But since everybody's guys, and it takes place in '82, not quite sure how to fit that in, so to speak.
I'm pretty sure that physiologically, any person with nipples will get cold, and certain contours will change. Just putting that out there.
This is true, but I'm not going to describe somebody's sack shrinking. It's just not going to happen.
You're trying to kill her now.
I wondered how that would go down.
Yeah,
anyway,
luckily
so
it's lukewarm, so
it's
great.
Never mind. So yeah, 13,000 words into it. I'm just about to hit that point where the shit hits the fan completely. Starts to come unglued, so I'm excited about that. I got one more suspense piece I need to drop, and then it'll be time for the real fun to start happening. But it's been really fun, really challenging to imagine what these people do in this place and how everything is fit together, and then dealing with the cold and the dark, because this takes place during the first week of winter in 1982, Antarctic winter. And where there's only the sun just kisses the sky, kisses the horizon, and then goes down and doesn't come back up for 6 months or something like that. It's ridiculous. Anyway, just trying to put yourself in that mindset of how these people deal with this, how I'm glad your nips are pointy right now, Rooster. I'm really glad that your nipples, I'm glad you shared that with us. It's been challenging to imagine what kind of personality somebody who's drawn to that would have. And also how they deal with the cold, where they came from. And of course I've got a Texan in the mix. So he's not having a good time. But it's just fascinating to go into that. And then of course dealing with also Finnish culture on top of it, which is going to take a lot more research on my end, but I've kind of gotten what I need to, but there's probably some more stuff I can add. Fortunately for me, they love coffee, so I can have coffee lying around everywhere, because they consume more coffee per capita than anybody.
Really?
At least from what I read. Yeah. They drink a lot of coffee. Yeah. Anyway. That's pretty much what's going on with me, except for the fact that I have got to start recording Oceania. I just have got to start doing it. It's got to happen. And now I am on the hook for taking my father to respiratory therapy 3 times a week. And that's going to take 2 hours of my day each of those days. So it's going to be, at least I can write while he's doing his thing. So I managed to get 1,000 words the other day. while he was exercising, get all of it done. I just can't record while I'm outside the house. So that's
Yeah,
kind of a
that
complication.
I understand. It's a bit
Yeah,
of a
so
challenge.
you gotta deal with it, roll with it, make it happen. But we're not here to talk about that.
What are we here to talk about?
Terry, I understand that you have a problem.
I've got a lot of problems.
Veronica's got a problem too, and so do I at times. And that's the fact that we see all these words and story in front of us, and we just want to eat, and not stop.
Wait a second. Are you saying that this is causing some type of eating disorder? That writing is somehow connected to an eating disorder?
It is to a certain degree, if you let it.
Please don't send me down the whole rabbit hole of this in psych, because I don't need that distraction. But now I want to research it. Damn it.
Anyway, I'm talking about binges. And the binge in writing is some of y'all do it on a regular basis. I don't, but I do occasionally from time to time. We'll write 10,000 words in a day at the keyboard. Not talking into a mic, but 10,000 words a day typing on the keyboard. It's happened several times.
Did you just hear him put down my style of putting my first draft in? Because he utterly slammed me right there.
No, I wanted to make a demarcation between the two.
So you're saying that when you write a lot of words, it's binging. But when I dictate a lot of words, I'm purging. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Maybe. Perhaps.
I see.
I was saying for me, a 10,000 word day is huge. It's a really big day. And when I have those days, and I'm not gonna put them down for what they are, because they're fantastic when they happen, but it takes time to recover. I can only do so many days like that until my brain just falls off a cliff. And one of the reasons why I like kind of spacing things out is I get more time to think about the story, think about characters, and I think my writing is more deliberate. But when you get close to the end of the book, as in you're dealing with the last third or fourth, and you know how everything is supposed to click and where everything's supposed to go, it is such a pain in the ass to let it go. Because you really just want to get in there and tinker with it and get it going. And this leads to some rather unsafe habits, like not sleeping, being awake at odd hours, being irritable, all that kind of stuff. It's like having a creative hangover. So, do you get those, Terry?
I try not to. I used to, but now I'm more methodical about how I do my writing time. And I don't usually do that unless I am way behind on a deadline and I have to put stuff in. So I am much more productive if I am consistently doing smaller chunks than if I try to binge.
Right.
So I try to avoid it at all costs. Now, somebody else here, Tim was saying that his best typing day is about 10,000. His best dictation day was only about 15,000. I've hit 16,000 on dictation, and it took it out of me for 2 days. So it really was not worth it. And it's the same way with writing. When I get those big word counts, I can count on the next couple of days being me not interested in being creative. So if I can go ahead and set a target for doing a couple of chapters and doing 4,000 to 5,000 words a day and hit it consistently, that's much better for me as a writer than trying to have these big high roller days.
I don't try to have the big high roller days. They just sometimes happen. You just can't get away, and it just keeps going. And you know you're going to pay for it. You know you're going to pay for it. But when it's rolling, you just got to keep letting it roll. But like you said, for a couple days afterwards, I am useless. I'll be okay for editing stuff or working on something else, recording or something along those lines. But trying to think about the story that I was in, yeah, you're not interested as maybe the right words, maybe the wrong words. Uninspired, I think, is where it would come for me. And you know that if you write more words that time, they're probably going to be stuff you got to cut anyway. So it just kind of, I have a very similar cadence to yours. I try and get 3K a day, and I'll get near that or a little bit over it, sometimes a lot less than I would like to, but it'll be what it'll be. I'm not trying to shoot for 5 or 7K a day. I would love to be able to do that on a regular basis, but I have to be...
You got
I
a
would
life
have-
outside of writing?
I have a life outside of writing right now in a big, big way. So it makes it difficult to get that kind of time to do everything that you want to do in a day. And couple that with the recording that I've got to do on top of it, and there's just not going to be as much time to write.
Yeah.
So-
And when you have to do both, or you want to do both, the order in which you do it matters, because you can burn out doing one thing, and then sometimes the switch over between the tasks. But I mean, by virtue of what I do and the fact that I'm catching up on stuff narrating, I can't write every day right now. It's not happening. But if I was going to set aside a day or two a week where I would, try to put down 7,000 words and just that's a writing day, nothing else is happening. I think there are ways that you can set yourself up for it so that you don't necessarily need a recovery day afterwards.
Okay,
Or
how
so
would
that
you
you-
do that?
So, for if anyone's followed me like on Facebook or stuff for a while, about 8 years ago, was it 8? What year is it? 7, 10? Oh God, it was 10 years ago. I was studying for my comps, before I could work on my doctoral dissertation. And I was studying, like literally studying, from 8 a.m. to, it was my job to study, more or less, on some of those days. And I would set myself up by having 30 or 45-minute chunks of time where that's all I did. And then I would have a short break. So I'd have a 10-minute break or 15-minute break, and then I get back and do it. And I learned how to set up my environment so I could sit and focus and just do that. And then, it's kind of like for folks who have ever done, running marathons, 10Ks, it's kind of like the run walk method. You're splitting up what you're doing so you have time to recover within this big whole bit. And that way you can push on for longer. If I've got to do big recording days, I break those chapters up, and I'll maybe record for an hour, break for a half hour, record for an hour, break for half an hour. The idea being that on a long day, I'm going to have 3 finished hours done by the time I stop. But
Right.
I can't do that every day because I will be exhausted.
Yeah.
And I can't binge record and binge write on the same day because the emotional just tax. I will not be a functional human being for anybody else. Which is okay if you're not responsible for other people, but if you are, that's a problem.
Well, when I get my
And-
3,000 words, I'm biting at it all day. I don't sit down and write 3K at one time. I will do 500 or 600 words, get distracted by a cat or something like that, have to come back, get another 500 or 600 words. Oh wow, now it's time to eat lunch. Another 300, the dog wants out. Another 200, I got to deal with something. Oh, I got to leave. I have to go pick up the parents and take them somewhere. Okay, fine. I get back, and then I get another 800 words before Carrie gets home from work. I mean, it all adds up. And I'm getting to the point now where I can just kind of walk back in and plug myself right back into the story where I was and be able to move. Whereas before I was having problems with that. But I've discovered that if I go back and I read a little bit, I can pretty much jump back into the headspace I was before, and it makes it easier to go forward. Now, if I didn't have all those interruptions, would I be writing as well as I am right now? I honestly don't think so. I think the little breaks are really helping me get to where I need to go. And sometimes I'll just say, you know what, I need to sit there and gaze at clouds for a minute. And I'll go lay on the couch and I'll put on my song that I've got, The Gas Giant by Luigi Verona. And I'll just sit there and I'll float and allowing myself to dream while I'm awake. I'm kind of perfecting that, still working on it, but lucid dreaming is kind of a cool thing when you get it to work. But that helps me come back refreshed even though I don't fall asleep. So there's like little strategies, and granted, I'm in the same space as Terry is. This is my job. You know, I don't have to go spend 9 hours working somewhere and then 2 hours in traffic combined to do a single day and then come home and try and be productive. I don't have that problem. Most of y'all do. So our strategies are going to be vastly different. But I mean, even getting, 400 or 500 words between when you come home to dinner and then maybe get another 200 or 300 before you go to sleep, those things add up. Pretty soon you're doing 1,000 words a night. It's just not all in one chunk, and it doesn't have to be.
No. But sometimes multitasking, especially for creative tasks, doesn't work. You tend to work better when you sit down and just, zero in, but it takes practice to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And it helps if you set up, like if you do it in the same spot every time you turn on the same soundtrack or the same soundscape, you get the same thing to sit and sip on while you write. And just boom, you're trained to get into it. And if you can get through the first 5 minutes, you're probably good for the next 40.
Yeah, funny how that happens. You'll start working, next thing you know, I'm looking at the word count. It's like, shit, I've written 2,000 words that was just sitting here. And it happens, and I don't stop myself on a roll, but life, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, comes and interrupts me all the damn time. So for me to sit down and get a contiguous hour to actually pump out words is rather difficult to get done. So I've just acclimated to not worrying about it. I'll get my word count. I just may not get it all at once. It may take the entire day to get the word count because of other things that are going on or, health problems or whatnot, but I'll get my word count. So don't worry about it. I'm just going to keep biting at it. And when I was writing and working a full-time job, I was basically writing a little bit in the morning and then write at lunch and then write when I got home. And that was while I was working full-time job and trying to put out audiobooks and write for the next audiobook. So it was I figured out a strategy to do it. It didn't always work. Work sometimes just required me to do 18 hours of work. Sometimes I had to do 70-hour weeks. It happens.
Yeah.
So, you basically have to go home and recover from that. And it's like, they don't give you any recovery time for that. It's just bang, 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 bang. So what, you work 70 hours. We expect you to do at least 50 hours this week. It's like, but, basically that's the kind of environment sometimes you deal with. And so your writing is going to be as catch can. Any of your creative endeavors are going to be that way, and that needs to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to something you'd said earlier, where you write in bits and pieces and chunks, when I come up to write, I sit down and I start a chapter and I dictate until the chapter is done. Usually that's between 22 and 2,800 words, and I get about 70 words a minute on average. So we're looking at 35 to 45 minutes worth of sitting time to do that roughly 25 minutes, 2,500 words. And then I eat something for lunch, whatever, sandwich, whatever, sit back down and do it again. And I can find that I can day in and day out do those 2 chapters without having to really stress myself. It may take me longer to do them if I then I might choose to do, but really it's worth of work to get those drafts done. And if I spread it out over 2 hours because I've gotten distracted doing something else, it does not kill me. And if I stop there, even though I've got more time in the day, it means that I have more creative time that I can spread out the next day. Right. If I tend to do more, then the creative juices have dried up the next day and I don't feel like doing it. So in the effort of trying to have find a schedule that works day in and day out, I found that less is more. And weirdly, when I'm editing, I can do roughly twice the amount, even though it takes the same amount of time to edit a chapter as it does to write the chapter, since I'm cleaning up after Dragon. I could still do 2 times. I could do 4 chapters a day without having my brain just tell me to go fuck off.
Right.
So I don't understand that, but there it is.
Well, no, I think that makes sense because you're not starting fresh with those words. You've got stuff to work with. And
You've already told yourself the story.
Yeah, it's not new. So you're going in, you're cleaning it up, you're making sure that what you said the first time actually makes sense. And if it doesn't, you're just, picking and tweaking at it.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's true.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. I totally get that.
So that's my writing targets is when I'm drafting, I try to hit 2 chapters a day. When I'm editing, I would prefer to hit 4 chapters a day and be done with it. And if I could do that every single day, then that would mean a book in 30 days, done on my end. It ends up being closer to 40 days by the time I'm done because of days where I can't do something. Mm-hmm. But it's still, I've settled into that stream of consciousness and it works for me. So I'm not inclined to change it any. I've written almost 50 books at this point, so I figure I'm set in my ways.
If it's working, don't fuck with it.
Yeah. You've got a method.
I don't need to improve what I'm doing. It works well enough. I'm not inclined to try to change it anymore.
Right.
Yeah. But like you both have said, some days, where did I read it? I think it was from a narrator who I follow. She had stressed to a bunch of us that your productivity is going to change based on your quote unquote season, because certain times of the year, certain life stages, life events, your good enough productivity is going to be different. I mean, for my part, my husband's always reminding me, he's like, look, you got 3 years, because my youngest will be in college in 3 years. And I will no longer have to be doing midday pickups so many days a week. I'm no longer going to have to be doing morning drop-offs. I'm not sure how I feel about this, but the timing, I would like to pretend that I'm, all just, engineer brain, no emotion, but I will probably fall apart when all the bedrooms are all the bedrooms on this side of the house are empty. But then routines will change. My summer routine is totally different from my spring routine because that's usually the season for doctor's appointments. And it's, whether you're taking care of yourself or you're taking care of somebody else, your schedule is going to change. Okay, I am embarrassed to admit that for someone who loves reading and who has books, I probably have far fewer books than I should. And yeah, so we'll just leave it at that. I don't, it may not be room for bookshelves, but I know that when one room got emptied, it turned into a Lego and craft room. So that tells you where priorities went. Yeah. But it's giving yourself permission to know that seasons change. You'll get more time at some point, or you're going to collect enough data about that time of year so that you can figure out how to switch things up. I mean, I learned that one of the best things I could do for my brain was have a writing playlist. And if I got to drive somewhere and I don't want to listen to a book, I turn on my writing playlist and I will let my brain wander as I'm going through traffic. And I'll think about stories and characters and what I can do next. The joy of handwriting stuff is if I've got to sit and wait on somebody, I can sit and scribble it out. And my handwriting's small enough, no one's going to look over my shoulder.
One of the things that I've discovered that's different, that I've finally settled on the way of doing, is I can't listen to any kind of music when I'm writing, when I'm dictating. It impinges upon the same part of my brain. Even when there's no words, it slows me down and it distracts me. But during the editing for this entire novel, I had Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning running on a loop. That's what I listened to the entire way through this thing. And it definitely changed the tone of some of the things that I was editing into it. And that was good because that's what I wanted to put into it.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe Tom Cruise is responsible for all the smexy that had to be pulled out.
No,
Maybe
Tom
that's it.
Cruise is not responsible for all the smexy. I will tell you that right now. And Nicole Kidman will probably agree with me.
Oh.
But,
Ugh.
but I mean, when you talked about the mynoise.net site, I love it.
It's a great site.
I love it because I can turn it on, and if it helps me with focus. And one of the things I like to, if I go out to a coffee shop to write, it's because I just hear chatter. There's a preset. I can hear chatter at home. It's awesome.
One of the things that I did when I was more active on My Noise is I found the Flying Fortress sound.
Yep.
But I didn't like the talking on the radio, so I turned that part off. So it was just the plane.
Yeah.
And I saved a 10-minute loop of that. And so I've got that on my computer. So if I want to have something distracting that is, just noise, I can play the Flying Fortress and have it without the radio sounds or talking, just the sound of the plane. And it works perfectly for me.
Yep. What do I use? I think there's a piano one that I like for when I've just got to sit and do spreadsheet work or PANA admin. But writing wise, it's the chatter, and maybe I think that that productivity for me, that focus comes from growing up in a big household where you learn to tune everybody out so you can get your homework done, and so I just turn that on. It's like, yep, zone in, ignore everybody, and get work done.
That's interesting. Some days you just have to put in the metal soundtrack and thrash. And other days I have Cryo Chamber as a label, and everything they make from Cthulhu soundtracks to everything else is it's all cinematic. But it's all drone and ambient noise and everything else. And those are fantastic soundtracks for writing. While I'm working on Kill Shelter, I'll switch between Expedition to a Black Hole, I think is what it's called, something like that, and my metal mix, depending on what I'm doing in the story, how I'm feeling at the time, and everything else. And both of them just kind of fade into the background. Because with the metal mix, I've heard the songs so many times, I know all the lyrics. If I want to write something fast with action and everything else, that's a great soundtrack because it'll get me going. Whereas if I'm trying to be thoughtful and suspenseful, then I'll probably switch to one of the Cryo Chamber soundtracks and listen to that. So I've got a couple of different ways I do that.
The other soundtrack that I'll find myself going to is James Bond's No Time to Die.
I think two of my favorites, just for getting work done if I'm in a music mood. One is the Oppenheimer soundtrack, which is nice and intense, and another one that's a little more energetic, or it has motion to it, but the Ford versus Ferrari soundtrack.
The other ones that I'll use on occasion, if I'm looking for something darker, I'll listen to the Black Adam soundtrack because it's kind of got some darker undertones going on with it.
Okay.
If I'm looking for stuff that is classical, I'll go with Jupiter Ascending. And if I just want something that's, kind of space opera-y, I'll go with John Carter. It's a great soundtrack for that kind of thing.
And so Rowdy says,
background music distracts me. I stop and listen to the music. It's a problem.
So that's why I would recommend the mynoise.net, because it's randomized. And you can it doesn't necessarily have to be quote unquote music. It can just be ambient sound. But just to give
Rain,
your
fire, all kinds of various other things. They've got it all.
yeah. They even have, I know they've got like a choral, like monks in an abbey. So you just hear this. And and you can set it as high or as low as you want.
You can
But
change the various parts of it and
Yeah.
make certain things stronger.
yeah, but I'm really glad Terry recommended it. I paid my donation, so I've got all the bells and whistles, and it's lovely. Especially if you're dealing with ADHD or anxiety or something like that, because it smooths the edges off of stuff so you can get work done. Funny fact though, when I was studying for comps, I was listening to musicals, which I normally wouldn't have done because I could listen to stuff with lyrics when I was doing math stuff, but not when I was reading and taking notes. But it got to the point where I listened to the same soundtrack over and over and over, that it wound up syncing up perfectly with when I needed to take a break. So Act 1 would go through, and it'd stop, and I knew when the stopping song was. I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get as much as I can done, and then my timer would go off, the song would end. I'd be like, okay, Act 2 next. And the funny part was it was the Legally Blonde soundtrack. So where she's like trying to do law school. But
Okay, here's a funny story from Legally Blonde, or at least from actress from Legally Blonde. She recently served on a jury, and they voted her in as the jury foreman, quote, because she was a lawyer, end quote. That's what she said. And she's
Reese
like,
Witherspoon?
yes, I said, I tried to explain to them that I'm just an actor and I'm not actually a lawyer, but that didn't seem to matter.
That's funny.
My head hurts. My head hurts. Terry Irvin says, I loop the Lonesome Dove theme music.
Whatever works.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
I have a feeling if I write a Western, I'm going to have to mainline some cow.
You should play Unforgiven, the Unforgiven soundtrack.
Maybe. I like things a little harder edged.
Clint
Cow
Eastwood's
Punk's
pretty hard
angles.
edged.
Yes, but he's not singing, thank Christ.
Crap. What was that soundtrack?
Paint Your Wagon with Lee Marvin. The only musical I'll listen to.
What was the Quentin Tarantino one?
Which one? There's a
Oh,
lot
The
of them.
Hateful Eight.
The what?
The Hateful Eight.
Oh, the
Yeah,
Hateful Eight.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
that
I was
actually
thinking
might
for-
be good.
For good, edgy Western stuff. Or if you need like space Western, there's always Firefly.
That's
If
true.
you watch The Hateful Eight and you see the one guy just bash the guitar to pieces and the one woman next to him just kind of like reaching out and then stopping, that was actually a historic relic that he smashed to pieces that was on loan from a museum. And she's like, I wanted to stop him, but it was too late.
God.
Oops.
James says, listening to various fight music, I've been introduced to funk, which is odd.
Okay, I've never heard of funk.
Funk. Phonk. Oh, it's a genre. Where is it? It is a genre. Okay.
But what is it?
A massive hit with online gym and drift videos, funk thrives on a highly brassy and warped chiptune and cowbell-driven smorgasbord of sometimes of sounds that sometimes barely echo the genre's lineage of 90s Southern hip-hop and trap.
Wow. It
These
sounds
new and
pretty
recent
noisy.
These new and recent essentials shine a light on the producers driving digital funk and variants like aggressive drift, house funk, and beyond.
So if they hired the guy to come in and go, needs more cowbell?
Sounds like it.
Whoa, how the hell do you write with that?
Put the link to that in live because now I want to hear it.
Well, I've got the Apple Music playlist.
You'll have to find it on YouTube.
Trippy. Yeah, I'll have to find it. I'm sure if you just type in funk on YouTube.
Probably.
Paint Your Wagon was a great movie. Yes, it was. It's a thing. It looks interesting. It reminds me of the music for Rocket League to a certain degree, except harder. Very interesting. Oh, I've learned something new. I've learned about funk. I may have to check that out for certain scenes in Kill Shelter. We'll see. We shall see. Well, what else we got here, folks? Terry's still too sexy for his book.
Okay, I'm not sure how I would write to this.
Okay, I'll go.
Oh, yeah, you're checking out now.
Okay, where's the
I like it. I like it a lot, but I'm not sure how I would write to that. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to this in live so that others can hear what I was listening to.
Yes.
It's a YouTube video because I'm like, okay, I like the sound of it. I'm completely unsure if I could ever write to that, mind you, but
Let's
there
see.
you are.
Aggressive drift fog. I imagine once you got used to it, it would just kind of fade into the background like everything else, and your foot would be tapping and moving around. So that's interesting. Thank you. The only funk I need, future funk. I find it fascinating how many people have different strategies for getting into the headspace and staying there. Some like no noise at all, others like as much noise as possible, and other folks want something more ambient and less intrusive. And I like all three depending on what the situation is, but I rarely do silence because then all I can hear is my tinnitus. And that's fucking annoying. So that's one of the reasons why I use music so much. Range of styles under it. Yeah, I kind of got that. Warped and chiptune. I don't know, we have a future funk disco mix in live. Speaking of, I did create an After Dark channel if anybody noticed, or nobody noticed.
Oh, so we should be, put our nastiness into
Yeah, because it's a restricted channel to 18 and up. So we'll use that from now on. Tim says, how much time would you say is pushing it for each of you? If I'm honest, my ADHD makes it tough to do more than 2 to 3 hours a day, but I can't seem to go less than 20 minutes and then go back.
So it depends on, if I'm very aware of time when I'm narrating just because of the booth conditions and stuff. It gets stuffy after a while. But if I'm writing, it's really like if I need to take a break, it's 30 to 40 minutes. But there are some times where it's the other side of ADHD where you hyperfocus. And if you can get into that hyperfocus, well, you can just keep going for a while. And then the note that you get is, oh, my stomach's making noise. I should probably eat. When was the last time I ate? Crap. I should probably go get something to eat. And yeah, if you're dealing, I am not a medical professional, but I am a big fan of being aware of just like how your brain works and how your body reacts to stuff. And if you're medicated, when you take your medications, and kind of knowing when the focus hits. So when stuff kicks in, how do you take advantage of that? So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Knowing when you're in the zone is almost as important as knowing when you're not.
Yeah. Like I personally know that this time of day, like 3 p.m. until about 7, please don't ask me to focus on anything. Do not ask me to do anything where I have to like zone in, write, get stuff done. I learned that the hard way in college because the classes that I did poorly in were usually after 3:00. Because it was the end of the day. I had already been to classes in that morning. I got another work done. I probably had my job that I was working at. And I was probably working on PR stuff for the theater group. My brain was toast. And now you want me to do engineering economics?
Yeah.
No. And in a room that had no windows? Dear God, why? Why are we playing? There's no rule that says you have to play life on, hard mode the entire time. So if you can find a better time, absolutely. Why the hell not?
I find I'm most productive, or used to be most productive in the mornings, but since I'm bouncing around doing all sorts of stuff and moved to I get words whenever I can, it's kind of screwed up my ability to sit down for an hour because I keep expecting to get interrupted. But when I do, I usually get, 1,500, 2,000 words, and I'm trying to write 3,000 words a chapter, basically. So I'm getting, basically a chapter done a day, which is in pretty good shape by the time it's over with, because I do pay attention to misspellings and everything else and go back and correct it. So by the time I'm done, I have a fairly clean chapter to work with, and then I can move on to the next. And I'm also getting into the habit again of always starting the next chapter before I stop.
Yeah, I've started to do that, at least for my Monday night writing, because I've learned there's some sessions where I'm writing 70% of the stuff, and Misty's just chiming in. It's like, is this crap? Is this crap? No, it's not crap. Okay, good. Are you going to chime in? No, keep going. You're fine. And I'll just keep going. And so for me, on those nights where I've got 90 minutes, more or less, to write, my target for me, what is a good, writing session, is 1,200 words.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, chapters for that is between 5,000 and 6,000 words. It's 20 pages of a Google Doc. So my goal in most of those evening sessions is either to get through a good stopping point halfway through a scene with a question, so I know where the hell I'm going next, or to close out that scene and then start with 1 or 2 sentences so I can jump back in.
That's what I'm getting back into, and it's working, because every time I go back, it's like, oh, I've already written 150 words. I know where this is going. You start basically remembering where your headspace is and getting right into it. Yeah. So it does seem to be a strategy that helps. It always has. I'm just now getting back into the swing of doing it. It's always
crap,
like
it
that.
Works. Now I've had to do it again.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I know what to do. Why am I not doing it? Is the question. Uh-oh.
Why are you calling me out like this? Hello, baby.
She says,
Terry is now flashing his cats at us.
I will be in between the keyboard and the desk, and that is where eyes is.
Ma'am, why you do this? Why you be fluffy trouble?
She is big time fluffy trouble.
What are you doing?
Dad.
Okay, bye-bye.
See, your animals check on you. Mine came in, grabbed treats, and abandoned me. But strangely enough, Belle knows that at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, I'm supposed to be in here writing some nights, and she'll just trot her little self in here, park herself on the cat bed behind me, and if I'm not here before she is, I will get yelled at from my office.
Nice.
Mom, why?
So
Brewster
Paul,
says, 20 years ago, my chapters were all around 5,000 to 6,000 words. Nowadays, they're around 1,200 to 2K.
mine started off between 4,000 and 5,000, and have ended up between 2,000 and 3,000.
Why?
Because I've learned that longer chapters don't grab better than shorter chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yep.
Now, you were going to ask me a question?
Yeah. So since I've switched keyboards to using the one with the softer keys, how are you hearing this occasional typing that I'm doing?
It's still loud.
See, you just can't please somebody.
What Terry said. I have turtles and watering troughs in the basement. They do not check on me.
Well, make sure they're not learning from the old rat in the corner. Otherwise, you're going to have martial arts to deal with.
Oh, man.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
Shorter chapters feel the story is moving faster, too. Yeah, they do.
True.
I mean, when you have a page turner with suspense and thriller, man, having shorter chapters of 2,000 to 3,000 words or somewhere in there is just absolutely the sweet spot. Because it's not too long to keep them from turning the next page, and it's not too short for them to go, oh, well, why am I bothering? It's just a great mix between the two things. And keep them turning the pages. What you want.
In 2010, when I went to Dragon Con and attended the writing course that they had there, that's how I spent my Dragon Con, was at the writing course that was being taught by, I've forgotten his name now. I'm sure I should remember it. It'll come back to me later. But the recommendation was between 22 and 2,800 was what he thought was the sweet spot.
Yeah. I think it also is dependent on your genre.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're writing Brandon Sanderson, I'm guessing your chapters can be a little longer. If you've got a lot of different points of view going on and you're breaking it up with asterisks or whatever else to notice a scene change or a POV change, those chapters might get a little weighty. But they still move because you have a break between one person seeing something and the next person seeing something. And so you're coming back at it as a reader, you're coming into it fresh. Right? You haven't spent too long in this other person's head, you're getting a switch. And that's also kind of a way to hit the pressure release valve. So I think that's an important lesson to learn too. Michael Stackpole. It was Michael Stackpole, wasn't it?
There you go. It was Michael Stackpole.
Okay. Yeah,
It wasn't Dave. It wasn't Dave Arnson. It was oh gosh, he was blind at the time, and his name will come to me eventually. But weirdly enough, his co-writer that was doing stuff with him at that point was somebody that I had actually interacted with on a BBS in Austin, that the two of us both were on at the time, and I didn't know he was a writer, and I wasn't a writer at that time, so it was one of those weird things where you're like, oh, that's kind of strange. So we had conversations about that, and we're like, wow, life is weird.
Life is weird. Life is very weird.
Aaron Alliston was his name. You're talking, but nothing is happening, Paul. Nothing.
We can't hear you for some reason. Clearly the gremlins have gotten... Try again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It sounds different,
really
so I think that may be on your iPods now rather than that.
It is, because this one died for some reason.
I mean like a BBS, JR. Back before the internet was the internet. We're talking early 90s.
Yeah. I ran mine on OS2 Warp because it was the only way I could get it to. I would be able to write term papers while people were playing on the BBS. You had to actually call into a phone line, JR.
Yeah, I know. You had to dial up through the modem. It was the red something. I can't really remember what it was. Red something was the bulletin board.
Yeah. Go look up the history of BBSs, JR. I'm sure it's going to be fascinating for you.
Are you?
And I'm serious.
God, I'm old. I'm sitting here going, you don't wait. And then Paul's talking about the 90s. Like, I mean, I was in high school in 92, and that was when I started like doing more stuff, with computers. But I remember, I mean, by virtue of what my parents did, I remember my dad having a dial-up connection when I was it was 87 or 88.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I played on BBSs when I was 12. I started playing with BBSs when I was 12.
well, yeah. And then, I mean, because him with newsrooms and all that. So, but I mean, I remember like starting to do stuff and like do more quote unquote online in high school. But no chat rooms because I was going to meet strange people on the internet and they were going to come and hurt me. Yeah, whatever.
On that note,
That's right, kids. Don't talk to strangers on the internet. They're bad.
if you have a question or comment about this episode or any episode, you can go to deadrobotsociety.com, punch that contact button, and send us an email, and we will respond to it probably on the show. Or you can leave a comment on our YouTube episodes, and you can find us at youtube.com/DRS podcast, where we are live every Saturday at 3 p.m. CST. Like and subscribe so you know when we're live. And what was I going to say? If you're into Discord, we do have a Discord server. The link is in the show notes. Come say hi to us. We really appreciate it. We have a good community, and it's getting crazier all the time. And if you want to support the show, you can find us at patreon.com/DRS podcast and buymeacoffee.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive live shows like the one coming up in 8.5 minutes. And at the $10 level, you get your name read. And our $10 patrons are Juan Valentin, James Terrell, Antoine Batts, Tony L. Joy, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, and Tim Niederreiter. Thank you to all of our patrons for making this show possible.
Red October BBS.
Red October?
Red October.
Red October was called the BBS. I remember the Mines of Moria. That was a big deal. That was in 82. That's where you could download Choplifter and et cetera, or rather illegally for the Apple, that I couldn't afford the game. So, yeah, I was a bad boy. Anyway, that notwithstanding, thank you all for joining us. Hope you had a good time, and we will talk to you next week.
Or an After Dark.
Yeah, or we'll see you in After Dark, where things might get kind of smexy.
They could.
They could. We could research